Michael Knowles of the Daily Wire was speaking at CPAC, and he gave a very reasonable speech. And he was accused very quickly of genocide, literally genocide, by the mainstream media. You were one of the few people on the entire planet who got the story right the first time around. So I'll shut up. You tell us exactly what happened.
Sure. So at the what's the CPAC stand for? Conservative Political Action Coalition, I think. At the CPAC conference down in Washington area, Michael Knowles gave one of the speeches on Saturday. And actually, I had to report on the thing all day. I was working a Saturday, and I watched a bunch of speeches. And I have to say, his was the best. It was far and away the best. Just very well scripted, very articulate, very packed a lot of punch. Anyway, his speech was essentially conservatives. Okay. You can't keep shaking hands with the sexual revolution and think you can remain conservative. So he started off the speech talking about, he said it's like conservatives are always defending something that liberals were defending 10 years ago. And he said, so in the 1970s, it was like, those bra burning feminists saying they don't need a man are crazy. And then a few years later, well, that's fine. But they'll tell you that sexual revolution stuff, no, that's crazy. And then a few years later, he said, well, that sexual revolution stuff, that's okay. But that redefinition of marriage stuff, no, that's crazy. And then a few years later, it was, well, that's fine. But this transgenderism stuff, no, that's crazy. And he says now it's, well, transing kids in grade 3 is bad, but grade 4 is fine, And this is just something, sadly, we see with conservative leaders. I mean, especially ours in Canada, And he said, the thing is about the transgender issue is it's really just a matter of reality. I get, you and I are both Catholics, and okay, we believe traditional Catholic beliefs on sexuality, but I understand the logic of how, somebody can still be a very traditionally minded person, but maybe disagree on certain aspects of how one ought to live in their personal life. I get that. Mm-hmm. But the trans thing, it's medical. Like, it's just, you just, you are a guy or you're not. It's not very complicated. It's not an ideology. It shouldn't be. It's like you have two legs and 2 arms. You have certain genitalia, you don't. I mean, these are very basic things. And he said, this is the sort of battleground where conservatives have to stand firm. And he said, of all the things conservatives cave on, the one thing in America they didn't cave on was life, and they won. And he says, so stop caving on everything. And then he finally said, and this is the line that was the title of our article, because I knew it was going to be the one that would get the clicks. But he said, transgenderism must be eradicated from public life. Now, clearly, if you watch the speech, he did not say any persons had to be eradicated. He was talking about the philosophy of transgenderism, this idea that you can deny reality and that you can encourage children to do things that harm themselves in a perpetual way, by having surgeries and so forth. He said, this is insane. Everyone agrees that it's insane, and it just has to stop. And that's what he was referring to.
And yet the likes of Rolling Stone, I think if you search for the Rolling Stone article, you'll get their old headline first. But if you click through, it's the we just got threatened with a lawsuit headline that actually pops up. And they wrote it up saying CPAC speaker calls for transgender people to be eradicated. Now, you can listen to his speech. It's on YouTube. He read from his speech on, I think it was Tuesday's Michael Knowles show. He just read his speech and he said, I choose my words very carefully. I didn't say that. And he, for once, it's nice to see, although maybe it's a little more difficult in the United States to threaten people with libel lawsuits.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because the bar is so high there. I think, First Amendment country, I get it. But he threatened them with a lawsuit. And that's refreshing to see because it follows the theme of his speech. Yes. Fight back for truth in all aspects of your life, which he did. He saw these hit pieces roll in and he said, you know what? You better fix that because this is libel. And they very quickly did. But he was written up as some sort of genocidal maniac, like the Pol Pot of the American conservative Christian right. But that's not at all what he said.
No, it's not. I can relate. I released a book about masculinity back in 2020. And I say in it, effeminacy, which means being an unvirtuous and soft man, that's what it means, must be eradicated. And people said, you called for the eradication of all gay men. And I was like, what? Anyway, so I've been through this. I was literally one of the critiques. The left, they don't have any arguments. They have to resort to, you're literally Hitler. They have nothing else. So, but it's interesting, Knowles talking about this idea in his speech. I don't know if you saw, he reported on his show about Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador. And there was a section of a press conference of his that kind of went viral. And he talked about why he was throwing all of the criminals in jail the way he was, which just seemed like they're in jail because they're criminals.
Right. Oh, hey, what you just saw there is a clip from my weekly full-length show, The Gun Show. It airs on Wednesday, but this is the internet. You can watch it whenever you feel like. You just have to become a subscriber to our paywalled premium content. Just go to rebelnewsplus.com to become a member today.